Morning here in Camp Mastater. The final morning here in Camp Mastater. Unless you want to quit your job and then we can just paddle northbound back up the Mississippi.
That is a bad idea for multiple reasons.
Paddle over to Florida. I hear Cuba's nice. We are, of course, sad it's over, but personally, I'm also rather excited about the whole getting out of the heat and no longer feeling like I have fiberglass under my shirt due to heat rash, but I'm just silly like that. Before it is completely done though, we have another 10 miles or so basically out to the end of South Pass. Why are we doing that when the head of passes is mouth of the Mississippi? I suck at moderation, I guess. It just seems like the right thing to do. At which point we're going to turn around, paddle back. If we can get a ride at that point, we will probably take it. And by probably, I mean, hell yes, we will take it. It's just a question of, is anybody going to be out here willing to pick us up, headed towards Venice and able to handle a 17-foot canoe plus gear? We have a very generous river angel who is coming to Venice to pick us up. We will go back to New Orleans. We have a night or two there, and then Jen is going to fly out, and I basically leave for the CDT. Oh, and we sell the boat. We have somebody waiting lined up, ready to buy it. Taters is actually flying back Sunday, which means she will land just in time to get hit by that hurricane that seems to be headed for Southern California. So this is South Pass Campground. We're about 3 miles south of Head of Passes. This channel was dredged a couple of years ago. We did have a pretty, that's the main South Pass channel. We did have a pretty constant stream of traffic going by last night and this morning. 6:30, and if you're wondering why we're getting going early, have you been watching the last couple of weeks? Jesus. Freaking hot. That sun comes up and you just want to die or leave the south, or you don't really care which.
The coast, it's going to be pretty nice today, but we still have a really long day today.
Yeah, so we don't know. It's about 10 more miles basically till the end of South Pass, where there is no other Mississippi River shore sort of things. At which point we have to come back. There were some alternates, but we're probably just going to come back up the main channel, so that'll be 13 miles up South Pass to get to Head of Passes. From Head of Passes, it's 10 plus miles back to Venice. So we've got like a 30-mile day today, probably. Unless somebody goes, oh, look at that gentleman in that lovely understated yellow and flower pattern getting attacked by those bees over there. They really like this. I'll just give him a ride back to Venice, which is kind of what we're hoping for. We did check with a charter captain, but it was going to be over $300. He wouldn't give us an exact amount, but it was over $300. And we're like,
They're gonna go, really? You paddled 2,300 miles and you don't want to paddle the last 25?
We're actually over 2,400 miles now. Remember, we got 140 out of the Atch, so. We've obviously been watching the weather out here and listening to the weather alerts on the radio for the last couple of days, and it seems like there are often storm cells that form off of at least Southeast Pass here, or Southwest Pass, which is over there. That was one of our concerns about not trying to stay right on the very end here. Also, this is a wilderness management area, so we wanted to be legal. That was a $7 a night campsite, which we're always fine supporting stuff like that. We saw a lot of these little wooden towers scattered around, usually back in the weeds and not easily accessible. We're not sure what the purpose was. So if you're currently thinking, oh my God, there's a crab in their boat, that is partially correct. He actually just crawled up my pant leg. He must have gotten in the boat last night. The very last thing out here before the saltwater is Port Eads. It is 11 miles from Head of Passes and used to be open as a place where fishermen would stay. However, after Katrina, it was destroyed. It was rebuilt at quite a lot of cost a few years later, only to then have it be abandoned after about 2 years when the operator couldn't do a profit, and now it's basically rotting away. The old lighthouse was actually open. Looks like somebody had busted the locks open years ago. But in order to get over to it, we basically had to paddle over in the boat because the walkways didn't connect. We found the lighthouse guardian of Port Eads. Hey guys, sorry, I just wanted to go up. Unless you think it's just me and the raccoons up here. Wow. Just a second. And there at long last is end of the line.
Almost there, Matt.
And at long last, at the very end, the wind is going that way.
Now if we can just get it to turn around in about an hour.
That was interesting. Not a single no trespassing sign. Granted, those have a tendency to get stolen. We can't help but, you know, compare this versus the Atch since now we've done both of them. And this does feel like a much more kind of epic finish here. Plus baby raccoons. The Atch didn't have baby raccoons. And now one last little bit. There's a sandbar past that second tower where I'm kind of want to go stand before we start heading back. So for the record, I had asked on the paddle group if it was possible to camp out here, and I didn't get a real solid answer. It does look like it is campable, just as long as there's not a big storm, and we have had warnings of severe thunderstorms and water spouts for the last couple of days. I don't know, I mean, we could paddle out to one of those oil rigs. They'd probably be really surprised. And I think this might be it. So Taters is here enjoying a Louisiana specialty, boiled champagne.
Oh, it's not that bad.
It's been 90 degrees plus for days. Actually, it's been 100 until yesterday.
It's still cool from last night.
Yeah, she's gone delirious. So as much as it appealed to me camping out here, would have been nicer at Port Eads or where we were. It is above the high tide line, but obviously there's any sort of storm, it would get kind of interesting out here. This is us delaying starting back because we've got to make it like 20 some miles plus against the headwind and current. So Jen is here and she's all sad the trip's over and that we're going to be apart, and me, I'm just like 20 miles headwind. But nachos.
We hadn't talked about the nachos.
So we're going to be apart for months. I like to call that the nacho phase of the year. I have a text message that says I can get as many nachos as I want.
You sent that text message yourself using my phone.
It came from her phone. That's all the court knows. It's legal. I keep hoping a big storm would blow in and we could just like peppin it all the way back in.
Sail!
Oy. And now I decided if Taters has to leave me, best just rip off the Band-Aid quickly. Bye, Taters. Have fun. I'll see you in a few months. Mush bloody. Oh, that doesn't work. Oh no. Mush me. Mush. And now 11 o'clock and we are headed back for Venice. Slowly. One of the major downsides of finishing out here past Head of Passes is that you have to backtrack 20 plus miles in order to reach Venice, which is the nearest place somebody can meet you with a vehicle. We knew that. We had investigated getting a ride, but we weren't willing to pay $300 plus for that. So we decided we would paddle back, and if we were lucky, we would get picked up by a boat. This sounded like a very reasonable plan until we were suddenly paddling upstream against a 2-mile-an-hour current plus a headwind. This is a little on the frustrating side. I know from a friend that's currently doing the Missouri that they saw a fair amount of rain there. I swear the currents actually kicked up down here this morning. And then, just as I was making peace with the fact we were probably going to have to spend another night out here and eat basically the dregs of our food, a boat stopped. It was kind of mind-blowing after being in a boat traveling a max of 5 miles an hour to suddenly be shooting back at 45 miles an hour. And so after what felt like a very, very fast trip, we arrived back at Venice where we made a little bit of a stir being unloaded off the boat, and our River Angel friend gave us a ride back to New Orleans. Sadly, we're prepping our dear boat to sell in the morning. And we're both kind of sad about that. We bought this canoe used near the headwaters from an outfitter, and we absolutely loved it. It worked great for us, and we would happily use the exact same canoe on another trip like this. However, the reality is when we are not on the trail, when we're not on a river like this, we don't have a house, we don't have an apartment, we live out of 2 vehicles and a storage locker. So storing an extra 17-foot canoe wasn't really in the cards. Also, it gets really hard to transport said canoe across the country if we were going to do something like the North Country Canoe Trail or the Yukon. I had listed it for sale on Facebook Marketplace a few days before, explaining that it would be available when we finished. Somebody was super excited, came and got it first thing in the morning the next day, and was excited to have something to have adventures with his wife and kid. And we officially no longer have a canoe. As much as we would have loved to explore more around New Orleans, the reality was Jen had to go to work in 2 days. She was flying out in the morning, and we had a good amount of tasks to finish as far as cleaning up all the gear and getting everything ready to go. We did have a little bit of time in the morning to walk around and explore, and we even got a personal private tour by our River Angel friend. We got to go to eat beignets at Cafe Du Monde, and even more importantly, we were able to go get another one of those frozen Irish coffees, which Taters has now decided is her favorite drink in the world. And here we are at the sad end of Massatators on the Mississippi. Aww. Burned, slightly less sticky. Good news, nachos. Nachos every day. Nachos for me. Well, sadly, this is the end of our Mississippi adventure. We already have a lot of other big plans we're working on as far as other paddle trips. We've started getting really excited about maybe paddling the Yukon, and we're also looking at the Missouri and the North Forest Canoe Trail and a bunch of other stuff. And there goes Taters off into the sunset. Bye-bye, Blondie. As soon as I saw Jen off to the airport, I loaded everything into the rental car and started driving for Colorado. I'd have a couple of days visiting family, and then hopefully right after Labor Day, I would be starting the Continental Divide Trail, aiming to do 1,300 miles through Colorado and New Mexico to the Mexican border. This was a big deal, not just because it was going to be an awesome adventure, but it would also hopefully be me finishing off the vaunted Triple Crown of hiking. If you're like, how will Matt survive? Who will carry all the things? Who will set up the tent? Who will cook and resupply? Yes, I am completely unable to survive. Big question is, who's going to record me doing things? Oh, nobody does that anyway, so it's fine.